with a lot of love. So here we are for the next section, and I'm just wondering if I could have a quick show of hands. How many are you currently working as a leader in your community or in an organization? Like you're in a leadership role, a leadership position. Okay, I mean, we all lead our own lives, right? We're all leaders in our communities, and in our lives, and in our families. But it really becomes a question of consciousness. Do I think of myself as a leader? So how many of you think of yourselves as leaders? Not so many. Right. Okay. All right. So here you are in an inner leadership seminar. What to do about that? Start sort of cultivating the idea of leadership. So I think each of us leads in our own world, in the sense that others, a leader by definition is someone others follow. So others might follow the way you do something. They copy, they imitate, they see what you do, and then it affects them, right? Leaves an impression. So I'm assuming, but maybe this is a big assumption and you can tell me this is true. I'm assuming that you'd actually like to improve the world. Yeah? We might even say change the world. We might even say make a better world. Is it? Is it? Me too. Okay. So we need good leadership for that, right? And that's why I think this inner leadership is so helpful. I would like to share with you the current, so this is our image of leading from the being, the core inside, because the core, although I feel it in my heart, it's actually the thinking being, right? The human spirit's here, the heart's here, which feels the emotions, right? So that's a picture of that. What I'd like to do is I'd like to tell you, unfortunately my slide changed, but that's okay, I can tell you. I'd like to tell you a little bit about social transformation theory. Has anyone ever heard that title before? So this is the theory of how we change the world. And I want to tell you the story of this because it's got direct implications for us as inner leaders, for the inner leadership approach, okay? So you can see the slide. This gentleman, his name is Ilya Prigogine. He won the Nobel Prize for Science in 1997 by trying for his work on dissipative structures. Does anyone know what a dissipative structure is? Me neither. It's a gas. A gas. So he was trying to change a gas and create a new gas molecule. I can't understand his paper. But the implications of his paper are, I don't understand the science details, but I understand the social details. So I want to tell you what happened. When he tried to change this gas molecule, what he did is he put a whole bunch of pressure on the nucleus of the atom, right? And he put a lot of pressure, and his thought was, if we put enough pressure on the nucleus, it will break apart and create a new one. So that was his theory. And what he discovered is it didn't work. He put more and more and more pressure on the old nucleus of the old molecule, and it got stronger. In fact, it built a resistive lining or coating around the nucleus to protect itself from the pressure, right? So he put more and more and more pressure. Until finally, what happened was a proton escaped. That's a positive ion. One little proton escaped from the nucleus. And then after that, I don't know how many after that, a whole bunch of electrons, protons, they all started leaving, escaping, essentially, the pressure cooker. They escaped the pressure that was being placed on the nucleus. And they formed a new nucleus. But the pressure, his theory that if you just put pressure to change on it, that it would break apart and change, in fact, was the opposite. It didn't change, it resisted the change. until finally a little positive ion escaped, and then a negative, and they clumped together to create a new nucleus. So this is now considered social transformation theory. This is how change happens in the world. This is how change happens, period. You start with a little positive thing. It has to stay alive long enough while the pressure is happening over here to attract something else, and attract and attract and attract until finally you have something new. So the real secret for leading positive change is you have to keep this positive ion alive long enough, protect it long enough so that it can attract others and get strong enough to create something new. So you get the implications for societal change. We put tons of pressure on systems to change, on people to change. We don't want this, we don't want that. We put lots of pressure, and what happens is it just strengthens itself. It reinforces itself. It finds ways to continue to survive. But if we create a positive alternative and grow it till it gets strong enough, then the other, what happened with the gas molecule, the nucleus collapsed. It just collapsed at the end. However, not every proton and electron went to the new. Some of them went down with the ship. They just went down, right? So this is what we see in the bell curve. We've known this for a long time, the bell curve of change, right? That you've always got 5% early adopters for any new idea, new way. But they're not usually the ones who make the change. How many of you here were born when cell phones were already in everybody's hands? You've always had a cell phone. How many of you have always sort of been in a world that had cell phones? No, you're that old? Really? Really? Can anyone remember when the first cell phone came out? Do you remember how big they were? They were huge, right? It was like carrying a mini briefcase around. I mean, you know, they were big, right? How many of you owned one of those? There's our early adopters, at least in the technology things, right? Okay, so what happened was the first 5%, very small percentage of the population, adopt the new thing. But then what happened is the next wave, the next 10%, like me, who waited until it got a bit smaller. And then we got one. How many were in that group? Yeah, like, that's too clunky, I don't want that. I'm just gonna wait a while. I'm sure they'll improve it. And they did. And then we buy it, right? But we saw the wisdom. We caught the idea, right? We just thought we'd wait till it was more practical. These are the changers of society. We call them the first followers. It's never the leader that makes the change, it's the first follower. In fact, becoming a first follower is to become a leader. So crazy idea comes out. Crazy, innovative, wonderful, creative, adventurous people adopt it, 5%. But it's when the next 10% comes along that the wave follows immediately. We call it the bell curve because we used to think, this was our idea of change. We used to think, the old metaphor for change, it doesn't, okay, I have to wait. Okay, the old metaphor for change was that we have to get 51% of the people on board before we can ever get the new thing going. It's going to take that much. So it's like we have to move this massive, boat. Now our metaphor for change is actually we've got 7.5 billion speedboats on this planet, and everyone is a speedboat. And I only need to get 15% adopting the new way. In fact, it's 12 to 15 we now know. This is called tipping point. Have you been reading this about the tipping point? We used to think it was 50%. And that's a lot of work to get 50% on board, 50% of the people on board with something. But to get 12 to 15% is pretty easy. The cell phone is the example. The clunky, slightly more streamlined, but what happened after the first 15% of the population had a cell phone is that society changed. Even the people that didn't have cell phones started to notice, oh, there's no more public phones. They started taking all the public phones away, right? So even though everyone didn't own it, at some point they had to, because there were no more public phones, right? So after 10 to 15% are on board, what happens is the collective consciousness shifts. Even if my granny died without ever owning a cell phone, she was the last of the bell curve, but the world had changed around her. It was now a cell phone world. So do you see how that happens? This is really significant for us, because as leaders, what that means is my job is, oh, here's how to change the world. Can you see that from a distance? Do you see all the little people screaming and yelling death-like things, and the person has a little heart over his head, and then they're all screaming death-like things, and the person says heart, love, and then one little one says, oh, here I have this, oh, goodness gracious. One little one here says, love, and he steps over. That's the first follower. And they're all still shouting or whatever, and then they go, love? Oh, a whole bunch go, love. They come over, there's one still here screaming and yelling. Eventually, it comes over. So that's essentially social transformation theory in action. One positive ion. Google has started investing, Apple did this too. Once we discovered this positive ion approach to change, they started investing big money in any individual who had a wacky idea. They would give them 6 months, full funding, explore it. Why? Because of positive proton, positive ion they called it, positive ion principle. And they would invest money in a wacky new idea for 6 months. Why? Because any one of them could become something. They just needed to have an investment in energy first, right? Then, after the 6 months, if there was no sign of growth, then they let it go. But from that, 99.9% didn't turn into anything, but 0.9% are your iPhones, and your iPads, and your iPods. The entire iPod, iPad generation came because Apple decided that's how they were going to invest in change, growth, and innovation, right? So the real challenge for us is, how do I sustain myself as a positive ion? How do I be the change I want to see in the world, rather than just keep ranting? How do I sustain the positive core? Because what happens in this picture, if you go back and start fighting with all of the nucleus, all of the protons and electrons inside the old nucleus, if you go back, you get trapped in the vortex of it falling apart. It's falling apart, right? So to go back and try and convince all those people they should join is a waste of energy. To be the example brightly enough so that they see it's an alternative. Oh, okay, some people can't see the alternative initially. They haven't got the creativity to see potential, right? So that's why the leaders and the first followers who can see the potential for something new, for something good. That's why if they stick with it long enough, others will then see practically, visibly, oh yeah, oh, I could do that. But if you try and convince them, what happens? They resist. Isn't it? So inner leadership is about, how do I sustain what I want to see in the world long enough so it can grow and others can join me. That's what inner leadership is about. Get the idea? To be a positive ion in the world of negativity. But the thing is, it's really hard to stay positive when everyone around you is negative. Isn't it? Yeah. That's why we do things like meditate or jogging or go to have a yoga or do whatever we do. We are trying to keep that positive core positive and not sucked in to the negativity. Because then we just add to the negativity that's already there. Is it? Yeah. So that's our job, is to sustain the positive core of me so I can lead the way, so I can be the change I want to see in the world. Rather than talk about the change I want to see in the world, because everybody's talking right now. Lots of talk, isn't there? But who's actually being it? So, this is what inner leadership is, to be the change. So, I'm going to ask you each to find a blank piece of paper in your notebook and to come and get one post-it note and put it on the center of a blank page. So, get up and get a post-it note and share with the people around you. Here is a series. Go here or there. Take one, put it in the middle of a blank page. Okay, so put in the center of a blank page in your notebook one post-it note. So, whether you want to be or not, you are an ion in the world. So the choice to be a positive ion is a choice. But as leaders, that's a choice we make. We want to be a positive ion for the world. We want to be an example of change in order to lead the way. I'm going to ask you to write on your post-it note in the center of your page the 2 or 3 qualities that you feel at your core. So it could have been the qualities after that little meditation we did that you wrote in your book. It could be from your nature. But when you're at your best, what are 3 words to describe what that is? And I want you to write them in the center of the post-it note. So I will do peaceful, I will do creative, and I will do strong. So that's me when I'm at my best. So you write your 3 words on your post-it note, in the center of your page. You at your best. When you're at your best, what do you like? And there's a bunch of words up there if you need help with words. So get up and look if you can't see. Have a look at the words if you need some.